Today I want to take a look at how to collect multiple attachments with PowerApps Canvas. Here we have a blank canvas, and on that canvas we're going to go ahead and make a new screen. We're going to use a scrollable template, and our goal is to make a demo of a travel request that collects multiple attachments. Now, a travel request might have a couple of different data points we want to have. Over here in our SharePoint list, we've got the start date, end date, airline, requester, reason for travel, airfare, some of the different metadata needed. In our data connections, we have two, a standard shared documents and the travel request SharePoint list. The SharePoint list is going to collect the summary tags for the trip overall. The document library is going to collect specific attachments for specific purposes. Now, in the standard SharePoint list, you do have an attachments control, and this is sort of generic, right? You can put any file in here. There's no specific naming pattern. They don't have metadata tags. There's not a folder system to it. They're just generic attachments. You could have nothing. You could have 10. Not a lot of control, not a lot of structure. We want to provide more structure to how we're collecting our attachments. So in the main screen here, we're going to come over to Canvas, which we have. We're going to insert a container and let that container eat up more real estate on the screen. Okay, we're going to add another section. We want to have a couple of sections actually. So our primary and then our footer. Okay, so this primary section, let me move this up here. I'm going to rename it, and we're going to call this data card main. I'll say data card form, and then here we're going to have data card attach for the attachments at the bottom. And canvas is fine. Screen, we'll rename it to screen main, kind of following that naming pattern Microsoft gives us. Label for the active name, correction bar, that's fine. Okay. So the reason we put a container into the center is a placeholder for what soon will become our attachment section. So down here, we're scrolling. Okay, cool. Data card attach, fill color. Let's make it look different. That'll help with all of the setup. Color, light blue. There it is. Okay, cool. So now it looks different, and we have a container control at the top for holding our edit form. On this one, we're going to do insert edit form. We're going to pick out our data source as travel request. That's going to fill in all of the default SharePoint fields. So now we got a pretty cool looking app. The top half are all the standard SharePoint fields, and we have a blue section to the bottom. All right, it's a good start, and we want to continue and keep going more with that. So the attachments section currently has a lot of data binding to it. There's a couple things going on there. We basically want to pick up this one control for the attachment. Yes, we want to come down to here and add it. And we want to take form 5 and put that inside of container 4 as a way of nesting. Beautiful. And we'll even rename this. That's our main form. This is our main container. That is our main data card. That's where most of the work is happening. Now down here on the attachment section, nothing special at the moment. But we're going to have more than one of these, and we're going to have them for different purposes. So our section of attachments, we're going to widen it out a little bit, get some real estate to work with. And we're going to collect 3 different attachments with 3 totally different purposes. We can give them different metadata tags and treat them any which way needed. We can scale this. You can have as many as you want to fit on the screen. But for today's demo, we're going to be working with 3. On the text labels, the first is going to be the attachment for the flight. Okay, cool. Here we're going to have the attachment for the hotel. And then here we're going to have the attachment for car rental. All right, so we've got 3 attachments, 3 different labels. Pretty good start. Now you'll notice there's a red warning about parent default and some stuff like that. All right, we're just going to go and delete those things. Parent.displayName. As parent.this and that. It doesn't have a parent anymore. It's been kind of removed from its context in this SharePoint form. It no longer has a parent, so any parent references are going to be deleted, cleared out, delete it, clear it out, and repeat. All right, so we got three clean attachments. We have our edit form. Some pretty good stuff going. We'll add one more section down here. This is going to have buttons. We're going to add two very simple buttons for today's demo. Submit and cancel. Cancel's easy enough. We put down exit. Submit, we're going to come back to that one. There'll be a few different things we need to collect. But essentially, we're going to feed the data to an MS Flow, and the MS Flow is going to place the files into a document library, while a patch function handles the SharePoint portion of things. And on the attachments for car rental, flight, hotel, this is where it gets interesting. You can spread this out, you can do your own tagging, validation, and really kind of go deeper with the user experience of how this needs to be put together. So for input, maybe you have a drop-down control, right? And for flights, you may want to collect the airline. So our placeholder text, drop-down samples, right here we have a default value. What we might do with something like this is set it up to be a lookup list of different airlines. Here I have a list of airlines. What we'll do is we'll take the new lines and we'll break them down with comma separated values. We'll put all of that together in an array. Go ahead and save that. There you go. There's your airline control. We'll just call this drop airline. So now we have a list of what the airline choices are going to be. We could do similar thing for hotel and for car rental, but you may want to have other things in here. I don't know, like if you want the insurance coverage, if was which type of fare, if it was first class or business class or these sort of things. So insurance added. You can collect whatever metadata values that you need to or want to collect for these particular items. I mean, here, on the flight, maybe there's something that you'd want to include that had to do flight specific about. So maybe on the flight, there's something you may want to put in here about your frequent flyer number. There could be a lot of different things that you want to collect for different purposes. Point being, each attachment could have its own sort of metadata interrogation, each attachment could have its own metadata inputs as a way of better organizing that particular data. So let's go ahead and mark all these. Pretty cool stuff. Now you don't get this detailed with the standard attachment control, and that's why we're taking a look at this particular demo. On hotels, let's go ahead and grab a few hotel names to populate them. All right, so here we have a list of hotels. Same thing, we'll format it up, give it some commas, quotes, bring that over. And of course, these can be data connections to SharePoint list, all kinds of other things. But I wanted to make an array just for today's demo, keep things moving along. We'll do the same thing with car rentals, but a few companies on that one. Excellent. All right, so now we have our form, we have our various attachment controls. We didn't really name them yet, so we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Attach flight. This is gonna be named attach hotel. This next one will be named attach car. So now we have all these different attachments. You can browse them independently, and they have their own metadata tagging. All right, pretty cool user experience. How do we make this save? What do we do with it? How do we save it somewhere? Right, it's the next step. So on our submit for onSelect, there's a few different things we can do. We can go ahead and submit and send in our primary form, which is going to be form main. All right, so now that we put in submit form for form main, we need to handle the attachments. This is where things get a little bit interesting. We're going to use MS Flow, and Flow is going to receive all of this different data and then handle it for uploading into the document library. The way we get there is on the left, we do create new flow. This is going to be a flow that's embedded into our Power App. They're very tightly connected. We'll say create from blank. We'll go ahead and do new step. And there's going to be a condition on here, basically an if statement, just a simple condition. And we want to check a few things. Okay, so here in MS Flow, we want to upload the attachments if they're given. Now, in my particular case, they're not hard required. Those three attachments for the airline, hotel, and car, I didn't make them hard required fields. They're more of upload if you can, and we'll save them and tag them. They could route to different document libraries, they could route to different sites, they could have different metadata. Sky's the limit. It's really up to your creative. It's really up to your creativity. So over here for create file, we'll do that in SharePoint. And we're going to post this over to our same demo site. And the folder path is going to be shared documents. And the file name, we'll go ahead and provide that. And here we're actually going to say like travel flight dash, and then we're going to ask PowerApps. Yes, create file, file name. Very nice. And this one's going to be the same thing, ask in PowerApps, create file, file content. Now, in reality, probably want to rename this create flight. So we'll leave that one for now, but we'll kind of evaluate that a little bit. On the conditions, we need to have a name and a body of content. We will not be able to execute this without. So here we want to focus on an expression. We want to use the empty expression. If the file name is empty, expression true. Okay, and we're going to say not equal to empty. Empty is not equal to true. Okay, we got it. So the empty function is not equal to true is how we're going to be able to do this. So one was the file name, the other is the file content. Both say not equal to expression true. So this tells us we have to have file content. We have to have a file name. We got to have both to be able to save something. That should validate and save. And then effectively, we repeat the pattern and we do more of those. So in this case, we'd have at least 6 inputs, and more likely, I don't know, what do we have? That's 9, that's 2 more, that's like 11, because you're going to have all the tagging that comes in here too. Create the file, apply the tags. I mean, you can go crazy with this stuff. Whatever you want to do for receiving the variables into Flow, Flow can then post them in a site, tag them, name them. And what you'll notice down here is I'm standardizing the file name. So this is a file naming standard, right, with a prefix that's hard-coded. Those are the kind of things that we need to have. So we're going to take this and we're actually going to just duplicate the whole thing. So what I'll do is add another action. We'll add another condition. This one we're going to rename. We're going to say condition hotel. We're going to add another action step. And just like before, this is going to be create file. But this one's going to be a little bit different. This is going to be create file. This will be for the hotel side of things. Site's going to be the same. And I actually am using the same document library. You don't have to. You can make a different folder. You can do these any which way you want to. So kind of keeping with our naming pattern, we did travel-flight-. On this one, how about travel-hotel-. And we're going to come over here. We're going to say ask in PowerApps. There we go. Again, ask in PowerApps. And this is creating the prompts. Now we create them on the bottom first, then we test for them on the top second. Same thing's going to come into play. We're going over here to expressions. We're looking for empty. The item we're checking for empty is the file name of hotel. Cool. We say not equal to expression true. There we go. We want to add one more because we need both a file name and file content. It's not going to do any good to have a name without content or the reverse. We've got to have content. We've got to have a name. Both of them must be not equal to empty. So there's our empty with our and condition. We have both saved in. Very nice. Okay, cool. Now we're going to add one more. Just for practice repetitions, we're getting everything together. This is going to be on the car rental. So we'll go ahead and give a better, kind of, start with the name that Microsoft gives you, but then add more to it. Don't leave it. Don't leave it as the default name. That doesn't help with support. Start with the name they give us and then add a little bit more to the ending. That's all. Just makes it easy to go ahead and find. So here again, we're going to take this, relabel into the site, pick out a document library. Doesn't have to be the same folder. We can do this anywhere we want to. But here we're going to have car rental, and then whatever file name we prompt, there we go. And then over here, another Ask in PowerApps. So we're now prompting for 6 different items. Now, we can add more. We can add create the file first, apply tags to the file second, look up the file's ID number so we get the SharePoint row ID in order to make the applying of tags. We could do all kinds of things with the flow, but what I want you guys to see is the essentials, the file name and the content. We have to have those. And on this top one, haven't yet finished it. We got 6 inputs. We need to check all 6, make sure these are coming through. So for car rental, file name empty, not equal to, choose value, expression true. There it is, got it. Okay, expression empty. Here we're going to select file content, not equal to true. So now we know that we have name and content for each of the 3 attachments, which are 6 inputs. Okay, good stuff. Now what are we going to do with our submit button? What we end up with down here is this Power App for the condition create flight. Kind of a messy name. Kind of a messy name. I wonder if we could give that a little bit of a better title. Travel attachments upload. Good. All right, so now that that's saved, on our submit, travel attachments upload dot run, and now we need to start feeding it parameters. So here we're going to say the attachment for the flight. But in our case, it's actually the first attachment, flight.attachments, correct, dot name. That's the first input. And then the next one will be value. And then we're going to repeat this pattern. So getting this to run is actually going to require a little creativity. We're going to need to continue this pattern and say the attachment for the hotel, the attachment for the hotel's value. Repeat the pattern. We have 6 items we're working with. Here is a different control. This is going to be the attachment for the car rental. First the name, then the value, bring all 6 together, save it, no typos. That is how we're going to collect the data. So the pattern you see is we're doing the name, value, name, value, name, value for each one of these different attachment controls. And I mean, this is really where everything comes together. This is where we are handing over all of the data. So here we can say maximum attachments is 1, just to make it real simple, where we're not really going to have, 3 or 4 or 5. We're not looping or anything like that. We're just going to do 1 for each. And our submit button is going to hand over the first of what it sees for each of these. And that's how we're going to be able to save data into our system. So that is our formula. That's our MS flow. Now we want to go ahead and give it a test run, make sure things are working the way that we kind of expect, and that we're able to post attachments into our document library. So I'm going to go ahead and browse for attachments. All right, so there's our first one, travel flight. And it does tell you that the maximum number of files has been reached. You can only put 1 in each one of these things. Pick out a car company, pick out a hotel, pick out an airline, frequent flyer number, whatever different data that we want for tagging. Because all of these could feed into that submit button as well. Those just become more inputs to that same parameter. We'll go ahead and submit. We see the button kind of blink briefly. I come back over here, we go check out our shared documents into our site, and look at that. We have all of our attachments posted. Hotel, flight, car. Now it looks simple. You put them in the document library, what's the big deal? The big deal is how we did it and what that means for customization. We did it with MS Flow. We did it with an attachment control. We can make as many as we want. So at this point, we can interview Power Apps with all kinds of prompts. Right now we're doing 6, 3 file names and 3 content. You don't have to stop at 6. You can prompt it for the tagging. You could route these to different folders. You could dynamically calculate the folder based on some sort of formula, right? Like, is it today's date or the name of the customer or whatever you need to do to kind of prefix these and better organize them? Here we have a standardized file name, right? All of this control you do not get with the attachments on a SharePoint list. Attachments on SharePoint list don't do any of these things. But by posting the attachments into a document library, we can add our own metadata columns, we can set up our own views. I mean, it's really just up to your creativity as to how far you want to take this. So that is how we can do multiple attachments in PowerApps Canvas. Thanks for watching.